What if I told you that the banks use a process every day that can cancel debt instantly, but you were never supposed to know about it? It's called tender for value, and once you understand how it really works, the whole debt game looks completely different. Now, before we dive into the video, this is not legal advice, this is not financial advice. Remember to do your due diligence. Remember to tap into the information on your own, because at the end of the day, it's on you. It is your responsibility. Okay? Number 2, if you're brand new, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Remember to tap into the channel. Okay? Tap into the channel because we are talking about this every day, damn near, Monday through Friday. You get what I'm saying? So, tender for value. Okay? This is something that when we talk about the aspect of debt discharge, I plan to expose the myths behind the tender for value. Some of us think we can send a coupon or sign a ticket and say, I accept this for value, and they're just gonna immediately accept it. My goal is to really break down the framework of how tender for value actually works and what it could mean for you in a debt discharge in a private banking sense. If you have debts that you want to discharge, if you're an entrepreneur that wants to learn how to do this so that they can be able to free up their income, this video is for you. Now, thank y'all for watching the video. Let's dive into another one. All right, first things first, you feel me? One of the things that I want to kind of talk about, you dig what I'm saying, is the definition. So let me go ahead and put it in Google, tender for value, Before I even go to what it says in the Constitution, let me just go ahead and just pull up the actual definition. So if I pull up the actual definitions, it says that tender for value refers to a best value procurement process where a buyer awards a contract not solely on the low. Oh my God. Tender for value is the lawful offering of payment or performance to settle an obligation. So let's actually just look up the definition of tender in the Constitution, because what is that? Okay, so tender for value. To tender is to unconditionally offer money or performance to meet an obligation. So the whole point of me bringing this up is because when they say that you owe tender, or, you know, when we talk about tender for value, the definition of tender is not the dollar, okay? It is an unconditional offer of money or a performance. And this could be money. This could be, you know, washing a car. This could be sending me a letter, or you could just sign the bond that I sent to you, okay? And under no conditions, that's why it says unconditional offer. So that means you can either accept it or reject it. There is no counter to it, all right? So let's just move forward. We can go to UCC 3-603. UCC 3-603. It says, if a tender of a payment of an obligation to pay an instrument is made to a person entitled to enforce the instrument and the tender is refused, there's discharge. So if you decide to send a coupon, a promissory note, and they refuse it, or in other words, dishonor, if you don't know what dishonor is, check out my last video. But if they refuse your tender, then, or if a valid tender is made, understanding what tender is, which is an unconditional offer of money or performance to meet an obligation. If a valid tender is made, then the debt or the obligation is discharged. And I'm saying obligation instead of debt because it's either an obligation or a claim. Whether or not the party accepts it or refuses it, it already is discharged. Why? Because the tender for value has value. Okay? So here's the key point. The tender doesn't have to be cash. It can be a negotiable instrument, a set-off, or another lawful form of value. You can create value every time you sign a note, but they don't tell you this. They don't tell you that when you sign that promissory note, it's actually a negotiable instrument according to Article 3 under negotiable instruments. And you go to UCC 3-104. Under UCC 3-104, it says a negotiable instrument is an unconditional promise or order to pay a fixed amount of money, which is very familiar to unconditional offer of money or performance to meet an obligation, okay? So they go hand in hand. The system runs on this, okay? This is the only way that you can perform on a obligation or contract is through tendering, okay? And someone will say, well, duh. I want to pull up legal tender too, since we are here. Okay, legal tender, this is what they will also hit you with. They'll say the only legal tender is the Federal Reserve note or the dollar. But it actually says that including the Federal Reserve notes and the circulating notes of the Federal Reserve banks and national banks are legal tender for all debts, public charges, taxes, and all dues. It says including, that's the key word. The fact that it includes it means that there are other forms of value that fall under the category of legal tender. They will just use or play a semantics act and make you think that it's only Federal Reserve notes or the dollar, okay? So how banks use tender for value. Now I'm going to tell you how the banks use it on their side. Essentially flipping the script to where now you can understand how they do it so you can see why there's a place for you to do it. Now, banks tender paper. They tender things like notes, checks, bonds for value every single day in what's called a clearinghouse system, okay? Your assigned promissory note is treated as a tender. They book it as an asset and create credit against it. Now, I always talk about the fact that when you do sign a promissory note, that promissory note actually gets booked as an asset. If it's a $10,000 asset, they book it as plus 10,000. And then after they book it as an asset, then they create a mirror liability of negative 10,000 and make it seem like they loaned you money out of their own funds. But the reality is you created that value, okay? They use the tender for value to settle it between themselves. So banks, they are not exchanging dollars, okay? How do you think they pay each other or do business together, okay? But they'll deny you the same recognition, almost as if you're not, just because you're not a financial institution or whatever the case may be. But tendering for value is not a financial institution thing, or else it would have said that in the law. It would have said that only financial institutions can tender for value, but it doesn't say that. It would explicitly say, though, that only financial institutions can borrow and give securities, okay? This is how debts are constantly created and discharged in the background without you realizing. This game of debt discharge, private banking already is happening, okay? It's already happening. It just doesn't happen for you because you don't know how to be able to operate like the banks, okay? A lot of people say, well, I want to be a bank, or I want to own my own bank, or whatever the case may be. I want to be the bank. Well, you are. And it's not in the money. It's not in you having a big vault. It's literally in how you communicate and deal with your obligations, okay? Because if you know how to deal with your obligations like a bank, you realize that banks are not using money to pay or to handle obligations between other banks, okay? They are playing chess with tenders while you're stuck playing checkers with cash. You dig what I'm saying? So let's talk about why you were never really taught about this, okay? If the public understood tender for value, the illusion of debt would collapse. I mean, think about it. If I told you, and many people watch my videos, okay, that will probably see it as, well, this is surreal. You mean to tell me that I can take out a $100,000 loan and I don't have to pay it? That's if you're under the assumption that you are actually being loaned money. Just think about it. If you was on the other foot and you made people believe that you was loaning them money, but what was actually happening was they was actually giving you the authorization to release the money. And all you did was just play a middleman role and give them the money that they actually released. But then you have them under the assumption that you gave them the loan and now they have to pay you back. So now you're pretty much getting free money. And imagine if it was a whole country. So someone will say, well, you're talking about it, Nick. So why hasn't the debt system collapsed? Well, because it's so elaborate, it needs more people. Okay. If you understand, there's a lot of people that come in my vicinity say, hey, look, I watched your videos, this, that, and the third, and you explain it so clear and understanding, calm, so that I could be able to understand it. And there's a lot of people who watch others, and for some reason they think that the people that talk about the things that I talk about, they're almost, they may be giving some good knowledge, but they're so chaotic with their approach, emotional. You know what I'm saying? Let alone spiritual, which is not wrong. Spiritual does play a part in what's going on. It is an energy that we have to claim. But there's rarely people talk about the legal merit behind certain things or giving you the exact steps to do things based off of their knowledge. They'll just say, well, you got to do this and that. And you'll look at them like, bro, I don't even know what that is. It's almost like me saying, hey, you got to tender it for value and then walk away. So yes, I'm about to explain to you what tender for value actually is. And yes, it is not as simple as you stamping a coupon. I mean, that is the action, but that's not how you fully complete it. Okay. So if the public understood tender for value, the illusion of debt will collapse. So if everybody truly understood this, then what makes this system wealthy would collapse. Okay. You to know that a payment isn't always in Federal Reserve notes. Okay. That it can be in negotiable instruments, credit, or a set off. This is why every attempt to use tender for value is personally attacked or ridiculed, because they don't want you to replicate their system. They don't want you to go against the system. The entire debtor to creditor structure depends on your ignorance. It depends on the knowledge that you don't have, which is why the knowledge is so important. Because I can tell you the knowledge like I'm doing now, and there's still some people that won't believe it. Not in the sense of, I get what he's saying. Maybe I can get behind, I could start to forget it. There are people that believe it, but there are not enough people that know it. Okay. Belief is an emotional response, but knowing is a logical response. And when you are dealing with law, you want to come with a logical approach. Okay. Yes, something could be wrong. Something could be making you feel emotional distress. And there are laws that cover you if something causes emotional distress, but you have to be able to prove it with logic. You get what I'm saying? You have to be able to prove certain things. You can't say, well, this person is causing emotional stress, and the reason is because you have to pay it. Well, their argument is you contract to pay it, right? Why wouldn't you just read the contract then? Okay. That's where you have to come and say, well, I did read the contract, but I was under the assumption that this was a loan. But the reality is it wasn't a loan. It was something where they was going to get the money up front and then double dip after the fact. Well, how do you know they double dip? How do you know they got the money up front? Well, when I asked them if they securitized the loan, they decided not to give me that information, which under the GAAP and the FASB, FOIA, all these different information acts and things of that nature that I use to be able to challenge them, also the Truth Lending Act. When I asked them for the proof, that would determine whether or not they securitize it or not. They decided not to give me a response. So I only could assume. So I assumed that it was sold, and they didn't want to give me that information because if they did give me that information, it would make my point. So this is what I would like to bring up in discovery. Bring up the documentation of who has the original note, and also at the same time the chain of assignment and if it was sold or not. If you cannot bring this question, then I'm just going to continue to assume that you guys have sold it. You get what I'm saying? The only way that you can prove that you didn't sell it is if you show me the original promissory note, like literally the original, not a photocopy, but the original. And if you have it, like you say you do, then you can literally bring it to court. Okay, then. So this is why your lack of knowledge, you can know the steps, but you have to be able to know when they come back at it. You can know that things are not supposed to be this way, but if you don't know how to go about it, it doesn't even matter. You get me? The secret isn't that debt can't be discharged. It's that they built a system where only they get to do it, or they make you think that they only can do it. Okay? Now, here's where people get it wrong. All right? You can write except for value on a bill and send it back to cancel debt. That's a myth. You can't just write except for value and your debt is just going to be canceled. The reality is, without proper presentment and recognition, it is going to be treated as nothing. So you cannot submit your coupon without sending a notice of tender, notifying them of exactly what you want them to do with your tender. You get me? Another myth. The Treasury has secret accounts that you can tap with tender for value. Okay. If you guys are on a live stream, you see how I'm looking. All this is going to be edited out and cut out, but I'm really looking at you and your soul. There is secret accounts or estates or whatever the case may be, trust, right? But there is not money in there. Okay? Because money is not real, all right? While securities are traded, you cannot simply cash out on a secret account. But the information of a secret account only just affirms that that there is something going on beneath the veil, okay? There is something actually happening behind the scenes. When these bonds are traded, it's not like you don't benefit from that at all. I'm not saying that. But it's not like you're going to swipe a tender for value and it's like they're releasing money from this account. No, it's just a contract. It's just pieces of paper being passed around. They don't even have to pass around the paper, to be honest, in order for them to deem an obligation to be fulfilled. They can just type it in. They decide to double dip and get more from you. Why? Because it plays a part in the matrix. It plays a part in making you work for the rest of your life, making you be a drone, making you constantly stay asleep. So when you think of that, think of that this is another tool to keep you asleep. And this is for my spiritual people, people that's on the right frequency. You dig what I'm saying? So here's the lesson. The principle is true, but the process has to be lawful and structured. All right, so let's just talk about how to use the principle. Let's talk about how to actually do this, okay? Number one, you want to start with debt validation. Before you tender something for value, you want them to validate the debt. The reason why you want to do this before you go straight into a tender for value, because imagine if you send a tender for value, they refuse it, or whatever the case may be, and then after the fact, now you're sitting there playing this debt validation game. I mean, you can do that, okay? But you can actually, and that actually speeds up the process in some senses, but you want to build up a case. You want to build up evidence, and you want to buy yourself time. Send a debt validation. Have them validate the debt, okay? If they're unable to validate the debt, or if you create a conditional acceptance, meaning I'll conditionally accept this debt if you can provide a proof of claim, or on the other foot, if you are deciding to send a tender, if you can provide proof why you don't fall under the jurisdiction of not accepting this or dishonoring this, okay? Because if they can't validate the debt, then we don't even have to submit a tender. You get what I'm saying? But some people will want to do the tender first, and it's almost like it's backwards. No, you want them to prove that this debt is valid. If they are somehow able to prove it, then you dive into tendering for value. The second thing, after you have validated the debt, then you can dive into a negotiable instrument. You can understand that your signature creates the value behind the note. So even before you tender for value, okay, you can also challenge the original agreement, the promissory note. You can challenge that signature created the value behind the note, and for them to prove that they've actually funded the loan, for them to prove that they've got it from their own resources and their own reserve and didn't get it from the Federal Reserve. Because if they can prove that they got it from their reserve, then it'll make this loan agreement exactly what it is, a loan. But what if it's not? This is why I'm going to challenge these things before I decide to send a tender for value, because I'm going to build the case. They're going to do things like commit mail fraud, because mail fraud could be as simply as them not providing information that they are required to. That also falls under the category of extortion. We can also talk about the fact that this is a criminal act under the Truth in Lending Act. They can be imprisoned for not providing information that they are required to provide. So I'm going to take this angle first before I tender it for value. Now, let's just say somehow they're able to prove this, right? Then I want to send my tender for value, because there is no lawful money. There's no way that you can actually loan money. You can give securities, okay? So at that point, then you want to tender for value. Then you want to send them a coupon. Then you want to create a promissory note or a bill of exchange. And you want to notate, and you want to put it with a notice of tender letter. In that notice of tender letter, you're going to say exactly what it is that you want them to do with the bill of exchange. You can create a notice of tender letter. You can go online, look up notice of tender, or you can join the school community. We got templates in there. You dig what I'm saying? You can create your own letter structured based off of notice of tender. And you want to say, hey, look, I tender this for value. I'm doing this for the complete and utter settlement of this account. Please have this reflect on my account. And if you refuse it, it will be discharged because of UCC 3-603. Should you not respond, then I'm going to assume it's a dishonor, okay? If it's a dishonor, that's actually unlawful. If you dishonor me, then technically that is a violation of my rights. You have to at least respond, okay? Or if you do dishonor, you have to give valid reasoning. And if your reasoning is invalid, such as you can't do that, that's not a reasoning. I need the applicable law. I need the legal merit, because I technically can say back to you, I can do it. And what are you going to say? What law says that you can? Ask them the same exact thing. When they say you can't do it, you come back and you say, I can do it. It's the same thing. You wouldn't do that, but you'll say, come back, I can do it, prove I can't. All right. The practical moves that you're going to do is you're going to send notices and affidavits and conditional acceptance letters and making them prove the tender behind their claim. So let's just say after they say that you didn't, you can't do this, you send them another conditional acceptance. Hey, I'll conditionally accept what you are saying if you can prove that. If you can't prove it, then yes, I can. You get what I'm saying? You see how I keep shifting the burden of proof onto them? No, you prove it, okay? Because you're the one who wants to get money. You get what I'm saying? This is the practical way to truly be able to tender for value. And notice how I'm not stopping on you write a coupon, you put this code here, you put this code here. All the codes that you put on that coupon, don't put it on a coupon, write it on a piece of paper. Write it down in a letter form. Okay? Send it to the CEO of the company, the head of the company, or their legal counsel. Okay? This is not legal advice. This is not financial advice. You know what I mean? But you can be pro se. You can represent yourself if you know what you're doing. Okay? Tender for value is an advanced practice. When I'm thinking of advanced practice, when I'm thinking of the easiest practice is probably debt validation. And accordingly, debt validation will go for third-party debt collectors. It can work for original creditors, but that's when you have to take it a step up to conditional acceptance. Okay? Tender for value is not an easy process because you have to be able to prove that you can do it and be able to disprove whatever it is that they say. You cannot do that. Don't do tender for value. Just start with debt validation and smaller debts. Keeping it real with you. Now, here's the big picture. Tender for value proves the money game is based on contracts and signatures, not cash. This is why I wanted to make this video today so that you guys can truly understand that this is a contract system. This is not a money system, okay? The banks already know that every debt is prepaid. So when you are bringing this discussion to them, they are not saying, oh, we don't even know. You know what I mean? They're not acting, they're acting dumb, if that makes sense. But not because like they are dumb or they genuinely don't know, but because they are criminal organizations, okay? When you look at racketeering is a pattern of fraud. It could be mail fraud. It could be extortion. You get what I'm saying? It could be wire or transmission fraud, which is emails. It could be credit reporting fraud. You get what I'm saying? A pattern of negative behaviors like fraud is racketeering. There's also bank fraud as well, okay? So that is why they keep having you pay. That is why they will go to extreme lengths. This is why they'll collude with the judges. This is why they'll collude with the government, because they actually are criminals. Everybody is pretty much criminals. You're in a system that is ran by criminals. So that's exactly why the system seems effed. But if you know how to play the game, then you can be on the same playing field as the criminals, but you're just going to do the right thing. You get what I'm saying? They just know the game more than you, and they decide what they know about the game. They're going to do something criminal. And there are some people that decide to do it criminal, and there's some people who decide to do it the right way. It's all up to you. Just don't get emotional. Just know that there's some people that are going to do bad, and there's some people that's going to do good. We know this in life. You just have to be able to navigate and have discernment. Be smart. Don't get a contract, get a credit contract to keep up with the Joneses. Or because you get excited because some credit guru says you can get $100,000 in loans. So you go and you start trying to get $100,000 in loans. You go and get that $100,000 in loans with no plan in place, no true discernment. You just wanted $100,000 in money. You then have this money sitting there and you got to spend it on something. So you spend it on something, and now you're coming back to BizNick channel, figuring out how you can discharge it. But I thought you could discharge it. I thought debt was prepaid. So that's why I got this $1,000 loan. Okay. So the real power isn't trying to hack the system with fake remedies and get unlimited amount of money or whatever the case may be. It's about understanding the principles. It's about using consumer law. It's about building financial literacy to create your own form of value. Okay. This is exactly why I teach what I teach. I don't teach this so that you guys can never work again or never have to pay debts, but so that you can have options in your life, so that you can be able to choose. The biggest problem that we have is the fact that we don't get to choose as human beings, and that is our greatest gift. The fact that we can choose. But there are external things like jobs, there are external things like debt, there are external things like credit bureaus and things that I talk about on this channel, external things about, our minds and things that we are asleep to as to why we don't feel like we can choose or we don't have free will. But the reality is you do have free will, okay? Maybe you're at work right now and you probably can't, just leave when you want to. But that's because you are under a contract to stay there in order to get paid. But let's just say you started to take control of your life. Let's just say you was able to either fix your debt, fix your credit, or even start a business, and your business starts to create cash flow around your own time. Now, you can decide when you do your work. You can decide to do your work in the morning or do your work at night. You can decide to do it in the middle of the day. With that, you can now decide to play this time, play then. Go to the gym at this time. That is what true freedom is. Time freedom. And then we talk about the element of other freedoms. You want to be able to travel and do this, that, and the third. But in order to be there, you have to position yourself in order to become free. And what is the positioning? The knowledge, understanding the principles, using the principles, and then building on top of the principles. That is how you're going to become financially free. And I can give you an industry or whatever the case may be, but it doesn't even matter what industry. You can sell cold cut knives with Vector, or you can sell lemonade. I mean, I'm not trying to say you can get rich through all of these right away, but getting your foot in the door is going to help you understand sales, marketing, operations, and fulfillment in a business. And it doesn't even matter what type of business that you run. If you are running a business, you can control your income. And that is one thing that 98% of the world does not have control over, their income, because they work a job and they think that they have control over their income. But no, the job actually has control over their time. Okay. So I ain't going to ramble on about that. I'm planning to really make some of my videos really start to segue into financial literacy, because I don't want us to be in this cycle of thinking that financial literacy or financial freedom is discharging debt for the rest of your lives. Because you may need to use the dollar. You may be paying somebody that's not a consumer credit transaction that may want a Federal Reserve note, because the Federal Reserve note still has value because more people believe in it. I was talking to somebody the other day, said, look, man, I want to go off the grid. You know what I mean? I'm more an off-gridder. So I'm not going to apply for credit. I'm not going to get this stuff. I have everything that I need. I'm going to be more of a homestead. But there's some motherfuckers, I love y'all, I'm sorry. But there's some people who will say they want to be private, SPC, not have to pay no bills, not go to jail, whatever the case may be, but they still want to get credit. They still want to, they haven't bought their home. They don't own anything. They don't want to live off the grid. So this is why I say, if you are planning to use this system to build wealth, like most wealthy people do, they use the United States to build wealth, then play the game correctly, learn the game. All right, thank y'all for watching the video. Down below, tap into the school community. If you're part of the school community, everything that I talk about here is pretty much going to be poured into the school community. It's only $27 a month, but you can get in there for free for 7 days. Check it out, see if you like it or not, okay? We do go live monthly in there, do a monthly Q&A, check in, and really connect with the community and see where their struggles are at and really try to help them directly with their situation. So that's the school community. Self-paced environment with some guided help on a monthly basis and tech support. Then if we dive into actually working with me one-on-one, imagine getting this exact feel. Imagine being able to listen to me in a YouTube video for 30 minutes and being able to receive value. Now, then I want you to imagine actually working with me side by side on whatever it is your project is. Whether you want to fix your credit, whether you want to understand how to communicate with a debt collector, whether you are about to be sued, or better yet, you want to create some real financial freedom, that mentorship application is down below. Tap into those links in the YouTube description. If you've gotten all the way to the end, comment the word discharge. I love y'all, and I'll see you on the next one. This video is sponsored by the Fund Yourself Academy. My step-by-step system designed to help you fix your credit, get funding, and build real financial freedom from scratch. If you're tired of feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just ready to stop living paycheck to paycheck, this is where it changes. Inside the Academy, I break down everything from consumer law secrets that they don't teach in school to how to remove negative items and boost your score, get access to business funding, and start building multiple income streams online. Whether you're just starting out or ready to level up your game and get the bag, this is your playbook. We've got tools, templates, dispute letters, mentorship calls, private community access, and an exact roadmap I use to leave my 9-to-5 and create time freedom. But only for a limited time, you can get access to the Fund Yourself Academy on a free trial basis for the next 7 days. And then after that, you pay less than $1 a day at $27 a month if you like it. No fluff, just facts and just freedom. Go to the fundyourselfacademy.com or hit the link in the description to join now, because nobody's coming to save you, but you can fund yourself.